Okay, so we will get started. I might pause in between because I have to keep admitting people because I don't know how my ad is meeting. That said, thank you for joining. Not sure how many are going to join live. We had about, I think the last time I checked, it was 150 accepted the meeting, and we had like about 275 brands have their teams join. So clearly it is something that we need to do more of as an, I know franchise is not an industry, but do more of as an industry, explaining how the marketing numbers actually affect your operations. I can't tell you how many times that I go into a brand and marketing and ops are not the best of friends. While I understand that, I think if we are able to provide more clarity around what numbers you guys should look at, where you should be in the marketing funnel, I think it will help just overall. Now, I say that this is, I'm going to be talking a lot as like a franchisor with, franchisee marketing, but this actually applies to any type of business. Like if you're a supplier, if you're talking about Fran Dev, all of these are going to apply. Now, I will also preface this by saying that this is a 3-part course. It is recorded. I will send you the recording and the deck after. This is going to be very 101. That said, I encourage you, even if you get to the first couple slides and say, oh, I know this, there's some pretty interesting maps that we're going to get into that I think are going to be beneficial, even if you are a CMO and you're just in here to see how Maddie's going to say today. Also, just know it's Friday. If you see me drinking a beer, no, you didn't. And also it's Bud Light, so it's technically water. So just ignore. Okay. All right, we will get into it. So yes, Marketing 101. This is sponsored by Your Franchise Group, which is a community hub that Adam Contos, the former CEO of Remax, I think he's on here, and he currently is a partner at Era 15 Ventures. We started, think of LinkedIn plus a Facebook group, all in one, but organized resources. Very much needed in the space. So we're excited to bring this to franchising. So again, the purpose of this, let's figure out how FBCs, operations, even finance people can assist on the marketing side and when you guys can truly be hands-off. So first things first, I know most of you know me. My name is Madeline Zook. I'm a franchisee of 5 home service brands in the Philly area. I've been a franchisor for the last 17 years. I currently am the CMO at Rolling Suds and sit on the board of about 12 to 13 other franchise brands. I also have supplier companies, and I also worked at a supplier agency. So very familiar with the 3 legs of the stool. And as most of you know, born and bred in Boston, live in Philly, very blunt, ready to swing at all times. And I will always do what's right for the franchisees first. So that's kind of always how we're going to look at strategy, and it has to be data-driven. If it's not data-driven, we're essentially telling our franchise home office staff to shoot from the hip with these people life investments. And that's where the subjective nature can get a little finicky. So that said, what is marketing? What is it not? Why does it matter? So marketing identifies the customer's needs and create demand. Operations ensures the delivery and products of services to meet that demand. I think we can all agree there. However, operations actually creeps up higher into the marketing funnel than most people realize. And a lot of times what I hear from FBCs and ops is like, oh, that's marketing, or, your business is going to grow because of marketing. That's like saying, hey, if you have a broken bone, we'll fix it because doctor. Right? It's not just one thing. Mom, for real, I said there was one meeting she couldn't be in. I have a toddler interrupting. Again, marketing isn't a switch that you can flip. It's not a department that single-handedly controls lead flow. We don't have levers that we can turn on to deliver instant leads on demand. It's strategy. It's built across multiple channels, touch points, and teams. It's not just, hey, my marketing doesn't work because you put a snowman on this postcard and I live in Florida. Well, yes, that is certainly a piece of that. It is much more to that. So it goes far above and beyond the creative that we see that is the brand. So the biggest issue in franchise marketing is we're so limited by our franchisee adoption rates. Sure, we have recommended and required marketing spends. The truth of the matter is we rarely are going to police that. One, because the last thing we need to do is tell a franchisee that is not doing well, oh, we're going to big brother you, you're not spending enough. Two, how am I actually going to audit that, right? If I say, Greg over here is clearly not spending his 4% of revenue or, his $3,000 minimum, he could very easily say, well, here's a receipt for a local event that I did and it was this much money, right? It's very difficult. So on that, while we might have mandates, we're not going to usually default them unless it's like an aggressive long-term underspend. And what that means is that franchisees, and I'm a franchisee, so I'm allowed to talk shit, we're the worst, right? We want to spend the least and get the most. That's especially difficult right now. I was just at Google this week understanding more about their cost per leads and inventory, et cetera. Things are at an all-time high. Competition in terms of people joining Google Ads has gone up in the last year over year by 39%, which means their ad spend is going 39% less as far. And essentially what they're expecting is the high returns without matching the spend. And why they think that is because they joined a franchise brand. What I am shocked that I have to tell franchisees a lot is there is no world where you joining a franchise brand means you're just going to get free customers and free leads. The fact that McDonald's, Wendy's, Dunkin', all of the biggest brands you can think of still require a marketing spend in co-op should tell you that even as a cult brand, it is not enough to just be a cult brand. So that is kind of usually a wake and shake, as I'll say, and they're like, oh no, so what does that mean for me? Well, that means that marketing is now on the hook to get them their leads and make them money. So what does that mean? Right now, any franchisee in America will tell you that they don't have enough leads to grow in their revenue. It's marketing's fault. As an ops person, I want you to think, how do I work with marketing to support them together, not in spite of? Because oftentimes it's, well, marketing's telling me no, or they're not doing this, or they're not doing that. They're not making a change to the website. What we're going to dig into today is what actually is going to move the needle regarding money in the registers. A lot of things that franchisees think are important or ops assume might be a lever actually isn't something that's going to deliver on that. So what this means is, there's three parts of what we'll call marketing. We'll call it the top of the funnel, which is where you get all of the leads. It's where you put the money. No one ever wants to spend here. I don't want to spend here, right? No one wants to spend to put gas in the tank. The middle of the funnel, everyone ignores it. That's once a lead comes in, the conversion rates, what are they seeing? The best ops people are starting to think about oh, what can we change A/B test here? But usually it's just, hey, marketing, there's not enough leads. The bottom of the funnel is where you always hear, we don't have enough leads. Yes, I've closed this many customers. It's not enough customers because I don't have enough leads. What does that mean? That means that actually ops needs to be more invested in this middle of the funnel than they have ever been before. That means the conversion rates, the calls, there's a lot of people saying, oh, I'm going to integrate AI and I want this and I want that. Well, we're going to get into a calculator at the end of the session that shows you, if ops is able to assist in this franchisee that maybe that we don't know their conversion rate, maybe we don't know their average ticket size, or we've pretty much just said, hey, they're a decent owner, let them do their thing. They're no longer growing as much. It must be marketing's fault. Well, if you dig into it and realize, hey, you're only converting 40% of calls. If you get that to 50, that actually drops your marketing spend by $4,000, right? So there's a lot of pieces that ops can now move up the funnel a little bit more to help drive costs down, because the truth of the matter is that the top of the funnel is continuously getting more expensive, and there is nothing marketing can do about that. Google has the monopoly. They straight up said it to me. They were basically like, oh, if you don't like Google on our costs, you can not be on Google. I was like, that's like telling my kids, here's your suitcase, you can run away from home. Like, I was like, did you just tell me to go to Bing? Because that was rude. So they know that you have to be there. And you know, there's only so many times we can tell franchisees, go be the mayor of your community. You have to local market. Yes, that's true. But that also doesn't necessarily solve for, if they're going to do it, the heat you're feeling from them, and also the sentiment of having to meet franchisees where they are. If they're not going to do it, are we truly giving them the best support in 2025 to grow their business, even if we brought on someone that turns out isn't going to hit the streets and do the grassroots marketing? So in essence, this is how we're able to understand where we need to focus on in marketing that's going to be the biggest impact. So if we look at this, and I didn't make it one big vertical because the slide wasn't big enough, but just think of this as all stacked on top of one another. So ads to impressions. If we are not getting enough impressions, and I will go over what these acronyms mean on the next slide, it's a budget problem. We are not spending enough to get in front of customers to see us. If we're looking at the conversion rate of impressions to clicks, then we know that it is a creative problem. They don't like what we see. Maybe we are not using an attractive enough person. Maybe, you know, it's not the right style of car. There's something in there that's not resonating with our potential customers. If it's the conversion rates of clicks to leads, it's a conversion problem. Is the form too long? Is it not loading well enough? Are we sending people to the home page without a direct CTA? If it's leads to qualified leads, hey, we're getting leads. Guess what? None of them can afford a deck. It's probably it's a placement problem. Are we advertising on TikTok where we know the majority of watchers there are not of our demographic where they're ready to purchase a deck? Then if it's qualified leads to sales, I usually say, hey, this is a sales problem. This is starting to be mid-funnel. This is where I hand it off to ops and say, it's a sales problem. What does the sales process look like? And I don't mean like lead nurturing. I mean, they have called, they are ready to talk to the owner, the tech, whatever it may be, or they're walking in and walking out of your store not buying something. It's a sales process. What are we doing there? And then if once we make the sale, it's an attrition problem. We're losing those customers. The job size is too small. The ticket size is too small. They're not frequenting enough. Then that's mostly an ops to say, hey, what's going on in your customer service that this is not setting us up for recurring revenue, or we're dropping. But again, it's also on marketing to help assist there as well in terms of back end campaigns such as, you know, the upsell, the win back. But again, those are going to be a very small percentage of what's going to be able to move the needle. So I heard this metaphor the other day when I was doing an interview, and after she told me, I was like, yeah, you're hired. You're fabulous. Is the air conditioner method. There's no world where it's too hot in your house and you turn on the AC and within 3 minutes you're like, I'm still hot, it's not working. I'm going to turn it off, or I'm going to change something. That is what franchisees do with marketing, and the marketing engine very much is like an AC. Same thing goes for, hey, it's working. I'm in my busy season. I'm booked out. I'm shutting this AC off. I'm cold. Well, guess what? 3 hours later or 3 weeks later, they're not booked enough. And they say, oh, I need to shut this back, turn the AC back on. Well, guess what? It's not going to be cold immediately in 3 minutes. Marketing is very much like that, where you should dial things up and dial things back. But the on-off method, especially not giving it a standard amount of time, is the wrong approach. I actually got into it with Google because, you know, a lot of people, myself included, say, hey, we need to run and test campaigns for at least 3 months. Well, I found out definitively that Google's algorithm takes a new campaign and it's done optimizing within 3 to 4 weeks. That is never what I've been told, but that's definitively to learn and to understand where your business sits in the competitive landscape on Google, 3 to 4 weeks. Now, I would encourage you to run campaigns longer than that so that you can test other pieces of the funnel, such as the conversion rates, the creative, the sales aspect. All that to say, 3 to 4 weeks is still a long time when a franchisee says, I need more sales by the end of the week, right? So again, another one for them to do. The last cheesy metaphor, oh, that was even a metaphor on a metaphor. That's too much. But cheesy metaphor is the piece of the pizza, right? There are so many avenues that you can do in marketing, but you can only slice up a piece of pizza so much. Where if your Google Ads budget, and I'm going to continue to say Google because this is the primary place where franchisees need to be. I don't care if you're QSR. I don't care if you're a supplier. Google is where you need to be. If you say my PPC budget out of this pizza is $1,000, and then within that Google budget, I now want to slice up that one slice with PMax and LSA and YouTube. Well, guess what? That slice just gets smaller and smaller. It doesn't increase the size of the pizza, which is an important metaphor to help franchisees understand that if you want to expand in more channels, you have to invest more. Otherwise, it's not necessarily going to net more returns just because you have more channels. Just because you cut the pizza up into smaller slices doesn't make the pizza any bigger. And I know these metaphors are cheesy and dumb, but like they work. And as someone who's running a business too, I'm like, all right, it makes sense. I get it. So here are some common acronyms that you're going to hear regarding marketing overall. We will get into the actual channel acronyms on session number 2. First one being cost per lead, CPL. This is total marketing spend divided by your number of leads, not number of qualified leads, just number of leads. Now, there are 2 ways to find a CPL. There is your digital CPL, that's pretty definitive. And then there is your blended CPL. So you could have a cost per lead that's $100 on Google. But if you also look at your complete leads in total, which would be your blended CPL, that takes into account leads that might have come in referral, organic, door hangers, event. That's going to probably drive your cost per lead down. Oftentimes when I'm looking at data, I go off of the digital cost per lead. It's a lot cleaner and a lot more consistent across the entire network, mostly because we understand that a blended cost per lead is pretty difficult to track. Now, if you have a good local marketing tracking in place in terms of maybe it's QR codes, maybe it's call tracking numbers, then you could explore that. But the digital piece is usually what I go off of. One, because most franchisees aren't doing enough locally for the blended to make that much of an effort. And 2, they want to do less. They want to do less and spend less. And if any part of that rings true, they will do less and spend more in order to do less. So we use the digital. Conversion rate. This can be split into 2 different categories. You can keep it as a whole of the percentage of leads that came in and converted to a final sale or, became a customer. In home services, we often cut it into 2, where it's your conversion rate of lead that came in and became ready for a quote, ready for an estimate. And then once you give that customer an estimate, the rate that it turned into a customer. So for instance, in a home services industry, I would want to see a conversion rate from lead to estimate in probably the 70s or 80s. From that set now of the estimates, I would want to see a franchisee convert at least 50% of them into sales. The average is probably around 35 to 48%. This is a big driver of whether or not you actually need more leads or not. Your cost per acquisition, or CPA, is total marketing spend divided by your net new customers. So that essentially should tell you that your CPA will say, okay, well, if my cost per new acquisition is $200 and I need 7 new customers next month to hit my revenue goals, then you should take 200 and multiply it by 7, and that's what your marketing spend should be. That is where the math never maths for the franchisees, because again, they don't often like that number. And that is where you can start saying, hey guys, the more you do locally, the more calls you're going to get in. They're not clicking your ad, and you cannot have to spend that but it's on you to drive that down. And that starts to get the wheels turning on, okay, I'm actually in charge of how much I have to spend. It truly isn't the home office, and it's not Google per se, but it's on me on how much I want to spend and how much I want to drive. Impression. This is a tough one. It's the number of times a customer sees your brand or ad, or the number of times Google or Facebook shows your ad, i.e. still how many times they see it, but Google or Facebook has a little bit more control over it. On average, a new customer needs to see a brand 12 to 15 times before they say their first yes, their first engagement, they click. Not all impressions are equal. If they see you on a t-shirt, that might be 1. If you send a nice direct mail piece and they have it in their hands, that's probably equivalent of 7. Those all need to add up to around 12 to 15 on average before someone's ready to engage in your brand. All these impressions cost money or time. That is what franchisees forget, is that on the back end, our ads don't necessarily drive demand. The brand awareness drives the demand. And then we capture that demand and turn it into customers. Lifetime value of a client, or LTV, is obviously how much money you could make out of one client. So LTV is important, especially let's say in the maid service. We don't make money off of that customer based on our cost per acquisition until that customer stays with us for like 12 months. Because based on their average recurring size, we know that we can make back our cost per acquisition and the labor, and we break even on that client after a year. You might have one service and you make a profit off that one service. If it's a roof, if it's a motorcycle, whatever it might be. But this is always something to take into account, because a lot of times franchisees forget, let's say in pest control, you need a full season before that client customer becomes profitable in season 2. And this helps when we're talking about your break-even timelines and your growth timelines, because they might see their customer count growing and being like, well, I'm still not making money. Why doesn't this make sense? Well, 70% of your customers, since you're a newer business, aren't going to net you a profit until season 2. And here's why. Things to explain. Intent, we're going to talk about intent channels, or the likelihood of the marketing channel is to convert the quality lead. Google is the highest intent. People go to Google when they're ready to buy, when they want a decision. When was the last time you went on Facebook and you're like, can't wait to buy chiropractic care? Like, I go on Facebook to stalk like all of like my ex-best friends that I hate now. I don't go on and I'm like, can't wait to navigate away from this platform to buy something that in fact I don't know if I need or even want. So when people say Facebook doesn't work for my brand, well, are you giving it a fair shot of what it should be accountable for, which is brand awareness and impressions, never quality leads. Average ticket, average sales size per customer. Radius marketing, it means the dollars spent in the proximity to the location. So if you are in a QSR brand, if you are in a brick and mortar, we're looking probably 2 to 5 miles targeted around that location. If you're in a service area, we're probably uploading the majority of your zip codes in a single territory. Every territory comes with its own budget. You can't have a franchisee that has 3 territories trying to run off a single territory budget. They do not piggyback enough. Your spend gets too diluted for it to even penetrate the market. ROAS, which I'm sure you've heard of, is return on ad spend. How much money did we make based off total marketing spend? This is the trickiest, and shouldn't be, but is the trickiest part, because as customers come in, based on all of our different CRMs, our tracking, it can be pretty difficult to track actual leads all the way through the funnel and attribute that exact revenue to that channel. While CRMs and agencies are getting much better at it, this is where marketing and ops oftentimes has to work pretty closely together, because they're either in different CRMs or different dashboards. And the more we can understand, the tagging and the attribution, the better we can make strategic moves on the marketing side. And then last thing is brand awareness. Ads that drive impressions, not leads. Same thing I just said with Facebook. I need to speed it up. Holy shit. Okay. Why it doesn't work anymore. Pre-2020, we all had a pretty good understanding of what small business was like. It couldn't just be all digital. If anything, it could be all local, but it was a pretty good, like maybe 60-40 split. COVID happened, everyone stopped. 2022 to 2023, everyone was like, hell yeah, I don't have to leave my house. I'm saving money on commuting. I'm getting COVID checks. I'm spending. 2024 all the way till now, we have now since whiplash, people don't want to be home. They're nervous in the economy. They're nervous with the political landscape, and they want to interact more than ever before they transact, which is why franchisees got used to not doing the local marketing. Veteran franchisees who maybe didn't have to do as much now have to get back into it. And we're on top of that, we're in the highest, cost economy we've ever seen, and the highest competition rate, growing ad sizes, lowering local marketing is a recipe for less leads and less revenue on the same standard budgets. So a little, business school 101. I did not go to business school. I could not get my MBA. I can't do math, but this is from Adam Contos, which I thought was just obviously great. How do you grow a business? One, you get more customers. That's really marketing, top of the funnel. Where marketing and ops intersect is selling more per customer, those upsells, those pricing, do the promo codes work, and increasing customer sales frequency. Can we get them to come in more? How do we make them a more loyal customer? An established business will spend around 5 to 7% of their monthly revenue on marketing to keep growing. I would even say that's low. Yes, you get the businesses that are so big that they don't market at all, but reminder that the fact that Coca-Cola and Pepsi and McDonald's and Budweiser still market just show you that you can't be big enough to stop marketing. A less established business is going to spend anywhere between 15 to 18% of their monthly revenue on marketing to grow. And the reason you can prove this out is the calculator I'll show you at the end of cost per lead, conversion rates, average job or ticket size. This is why this number is so high, because the costs are high. Another little just overview is that about 20 years ago, marketing was a direct line. I could spend this, and I know definitively in like one channel, I would get this many customers. Think direct mail. 10 years go by, it becomes more of a fork. I spend one, maybe there's 2 or 3 channels. Today is more of a wheel where there's different cogs and different pieces, SEO and marketing. And the more you pull cogs out, the slower and more wonky that wheel is going to drive, which is important because no matter what, franchisees always want to see that direct line. That direct line just does not exist anymore. It has to be an all-encompassing wheel. In an election year, franchise brands have reported an average 10% decline in sales. While it is not an election year, of course, last year was, and we still are in some pretty political turmoil with the tariffs. So I would anticipate still seeing some decline in sales or a lingering decline that you might see. It's also important that marketing and ops examine economic trends that directly impact your product. For instance, real estate. If the real estate market was not good, well, we know that home services are done, the bigger ticket items, 18 months before a sale or 18 months after. So obviously, if the real estate market is not doing very well, then home services are going to be a direct impact of that. This is some of the things that I worry about with the tariffs. What about cars? What about inventory? Things to monitor that might not be directly affect your sales, but certainly something that you could see farther down in the funnel. So intent-wise, actually, you know what? I'll get into it. This is kind of how we score, and I say we, but I made this up, but every marketer knows you kind of do it in your head a little bit, how we score where we should put our marketing dollars. Let's say that we rate these on a scale of 1 to 5. Google, we know that people go with the intent to purchase. I'm going to give it a 5. It has low awareness because it doesn't drive demand. It waits for you to tell it what you want and then shows it to you. Therefore, the quality lead is 5. So I'm going to give Google a score of 11. Meta, low intent. People don't go to Meta to buy something. High awareness. It's going to show it a lot, and people spend a lot of time with on those platforms. But the quality of leads are low because usually they're not ready to buy. We'll give it a 7. Now let's talk about your website, right? It's high intent. It's mid awareness. Again, it doesn't really show up, but I'm going to give it more than a 1, and the quality of lead is 5. Obviously, you should always have a great website. That's 12. Direct mail. Low intent. I don't go to the mailbox and I'm like, can't wait to buy something. Great awareness, especially if you're doing single brand pieces. I'd say a mid-sized quality lead, right? People can see it. They're going to put it on their fridge, or they're going to see it and say, I need this. Yeah, it's a good reminder. I'm going to do this on my to-do list now. 8. Same thing with, let's say, like a home service event. Now, the reason why this is good is because now you can say, hey, guys, with your budget, we can't go on a minimum spend and do all of these things. Let's pick the top 3, right? And then you always have that franchisee that's like, Ronald, you don't know best. I know that I need to advertise on that cafe placemat. So this is easy to say, okay, well, let's score it, right? I don't go to this cafe and wait for my eggs and say I want to look at an ad and call. 1, it's a low awareness, or maybe you give it a 2 because a lot of people come in. But again, I wouldn't want my logo with a coffee stain on it. And then the quality of lead is, again, probably going to be low. So you can say, okay, well, this is a 3. If you really want to do it, I have this in an email record that we've warned you. So just a good way to kind of visualize that. So this is where I just actually created this brain dump of a franchise marketing map, and I'm going to walk you through the overview and then in depth. I'm going to go a little bit quickly because apparently I like to hear myself talk and I'm talking too much. So we're going to get into it. This represents essentially every channel that you could spend in today to get a single customer. So let's assume that this is all of the channels to reach a customer. On average, a customer will engage with multiple channels, i.e. the impressions, before engaging in a sale. So then what we're going to say is, what does that buyer's journey look like, right? So here's all of the paths that they can become a client. First impression, first conversion. Are they recurring? Do they come in for a trial? Are they high intent? Are they an old customer that came back? And then they flow into the bottom of the funnel, which is, how are we converting them? Is it the phone? Is it in person? Is it digital? Do I upsell them? Is it a cost conversion? Is it a win back? Is it an estimate? Is it an affiliate partnership? Is it a customer service call? Is it a competitor bidding call? All different paths of the buyer's journey. They will all fall into kind of ding like a ping pong ball around a couple of these. The path outlines how, when, and how much they'll pay. And then that ultimately determines your cost per customer, per channel, and where you need to spend the most time optimizing and the most money. So after that conversion, then they receive their product or service. From there, they'll transition to the operational side of the business where fulfillment and ongoing service begins. So let's do a deep dive. Let's run with an example. So to make this more tangible, we're going to run through a real world example. We'll start with here. Here's your map. Let's say Riley is our franchisee, and I say, here's your map. Here's all of your options of where you can spend, let's say, your $3,000. Well, I know as the franchisor that I'm going to tell you definitively, here are our suggestions of where we think that you should spend the most money or spend your money based on our data and our brand. We've got print, public relations, direct mail, Google ads, social, guerrilla marketing, local search engine optimization, so SEO, and then your website. And then off of those are the highlighted pieces of each one. So now we've cut it down by probably 70%. So this is important because now you can see where they've selected to run their spends. So let's say print, they're going to do a display. He's going to run a Valpak, which is a saturation mailer. He's going to run some emails. He's going to do a pay-per-click. He's going to do a local service ad, do Instagram, Facebook. And then, of course, he's going to run his marketing. He's going to do some BNIs, door-to-door, an event. And then, of course, this is usually where the tech or the marketing fee comes in, where he has his website, his landing pages, and then you've got your GBP, your local listings, and your reviews. These numbers represent where a single customer has now come in and had all of these. Yes, Christy, I will be sending this presentation over. These are all of the opportunities and how many impressions they're on estimate worth if a customer were to see them in these channels, right? You meet someone at an event, you shake hands. Oh, Riley, our kids go to the same school. that's a pretty big impression. Whereas if they Google something and it comes up, it's probably worth, maybe one. So these are all of the impressions that one customer could probably get. Reminder, we want to get to 12 to 15. So now we can say, okay, this is actually where this single customer came from, with the highlighted one being where they actually converted. So they saw the van when we were marketing. They saw us on Instagram. They then went to our website. They also at the same time got a saturation mailer, and eventually they Googled us again and they converted at PPC. You can see that all of the touch points happened before this PPC. Now, the paid touch points are probably your Instagram, your saturation mailers, and I'm not even going to count, and your PPC, I'm not going to count marketing, but we'll just count that as time. Microsite will count as your tech fee. So that said, we have now spent all of this money, and then guess what? Pay-per-click gets all of the credit, which great, that's high awareness. But if we were to go back and say, hey, guess what? We're not going to do any of these other things. We're only going to do PPC. Well, now that's a one impression and you're just waiting. People aren't going to Google you 15 times. It's just the truth, right? So what is driving that demand? And there are often times where I actually tell franchisees, hey, the volume and the demand in your area is really good. If your budget is not above $3 or $4 grand, maybe you don't have to do all of these things because the area and the territory are high in demand. And I would rather have you spend all of your money to go to where people are searching rather than to create that demand. Now, eventually, this usually means that you're maxing out your budget, or they have to increase their budget every month on Google because we're maxing it out. That's great. When we get to a point where we're not maxing it out, we're not hitting the budget, then you can start saying, hey, I need to pull from PPC and put it more in Facebook or a saturation mailer because there isn't enough volume. Usually what will happen in a standard business is you've got, 70 to 80% in PPC, and then that other 20 to 30% will go to brand awareness. Ideally, we always want, I'm going to sneeze, a mix, but this is where the data will tell us. Now, they came in through pay-per-click, and this specific lead was a first impression and a first conversion, meaning this is the first time they've interacted with our brand. This is the first time they've became a lead. They're looking for a recurring service, and they also have very high intent because they converted on Google. So we know we got to get on this lead right away. From there, they then go in, and we know that he sent in a form and converted, but also went to our call center to convert. He went from that to an estimate. He wanted to get an estimate. He wasn't ready to book right away. And remember, we are looking at conversions here and conversions here. And this is where ops is starting to play a heavier hand in it. Is the call center converting very well? This type of customer. Is the landing page converting well? On the estimate to trials, what is the franchisee follow-up like? Are they converting very well? Are they even getting back to this type of customer? And then from that, obviously it goes down to the product or service where they officially become a customer. So you can see this was for one customer, all of these different efforts and paths. So on that, here is where ops has a heavier hand, and actually where, more marketing people need to understand this. Let's consider these 10 customers break even. So in order to hit break even, you need to do that process and that spend 10 times. So for those who might not understand what the overhead is, which I assume you all do, you're mostly in ops, it's your, all of the costs that it costs to operate your business on a monthly basis. So in order to understand how many customers we need to get that, you would take your overhead and divide it by your average monthly revenue per customer. And then it would tell you how many customers you need. And then you can multiply that by your cost per acquisition, which is your total monthly marketing spend to cover just your overhead. And reminder that your cost per acquisition would be your total marketing spend divided by net new customers. Now, after this, growth is profit. So if you have a revenue goal, which I would hope is over overhead, you can divide your revenue goal by your average monthly revenue per customer, which tells you how many additional customers you would need to hit that revenue goal. Then you could say, I'm taking those total customers that I need, let's say 5, multiplying it by my cost per acquisition, which now tells me my total monthly marketing additional spend needed on top of what I already have to bucket to hit that overhead. Now, where ops can come in and assist is understanding this is where the lifetime value comes in and recurring customers. Because oftentimes, let's say for a maid service, I don't have to get 15 net new every month because they're booking and they're booking a service for every month. So what ideally you're just continuously growing your profit. Now there is going to be attrition, but sometimes there are the one-time services like the decks, the power washing that you do have to get 15 net new every month and at minimum get 10. And this is where all of those numbers and conversion rates really start to matter, because when you're telling me I have to get a net new 15, 16, 17 every single month with costs going up, now we really want to get into, hey, how much is that average job size? I want to get that number of customers down and the frequency up so I don't have to spend as much to get a new customer every single time. So this just kind of goes over what I was just saying. So then on that, this is a calculator. I'll include a link to it. It is, I call it the devil's calculator because it does not take into account lifetime value, referral, recurring. But what it will do is show you on how much this franchisee would need to spend based on their actual numbers. So your marketing spend directly influenced by how much it costs to get a customer, your average sale size, and your annual value. For the sake of this calculator, we do not take into this account the lifetime or recurring. You could very easily build it in. My husband actually built this calculator for our own franchises, which is why I'm sharing it now, because it, as simple as it is, it really helps with franchisees' understanding of how the numbers work together and what the expectation is. Your cost per acquisition is directly influenced by your cost per lead and your conversion rate. And I will show you an example next, but essentially, you know, if your cost per lead is super high and your conversion rates are super low, then you got to get a lot more leads in order to hit a certain amount of customers, and that's going to drive your cost per acquisition up. Your conversion rate is directly influenced by your sales process and time, your tech stack, your reputation and reviews, the industry, the season, the sale size, and promotions, right? I don't want to just say, hey, the call center's bad because it's winter and I sell, I don't know, something that is outside. But I also don't want to say, give the conversion rate. And this is where we essentially, hold on, let me go back, have to break it up based on how did they ping here as the ping pong ball? And when did it come down? You know, is the conversion rate really the fault of the call center? Is it the fault of the franchisee? Is it someone that's looking for a trial? Is it someone that's looking just to do like a save money or winning them back? This is where you would really want to break it up. And then moving on. And then your cost per lead. This is very, very, I don't know what the word is because I don't use big words, but people have different opinions of it. Your cost per lead is influenced by your monetary investment. If you are not spending enough to get shown enough, then the leads you do get are going to look like they're way more expensive because you're bidding against other people and not winning. You're still spending the money, let's say pay per click, but you're not converting. It's also the time investment. If you have someone, a franchisee that says, I don't care what you say, Krista, like I am not going and doing the door hanging and stuff. Well, guess what? They don't have any real driver to feed the demand engine. So they're going to end up having to spend more because one, they're not getting the free referral call-ins. And they're also just waiting for the demand to come to them, and it's going to be more expensive. Also, we take into account the brand, the industry, the season, location, age, your tech stack. A franchise that's 20 years in business is going to have a lower cost per lead because of their big SEO and their reputation and referrals than someone who is 2 years in business. That said, ticket size matters. So for a company that might be selling automotive aftercare, we could be looking at $15, $16 cost per lead. I know in my closet business with an average job size of $7,000, our cost per lead is $850. So that at final size matters. And the same thing with the decks, right? It's like a big investment, bigger time, etc. So once you know these numbers, and they're very easy, you should all have access to them, then you can put in here your goal revenue. I want to drive, and this is net new, reminder, 25,000 in net new revenue next month. Well, because of these numbers, I can then say, well, franchisee, you would then, if you didn't do anything and sat on your ass, you would have to spend $6,900 because you need 113 leads, 80 estimates, which turns into 41 jobs, and that should net you around $25,000. Now, let me go into this example. So ignore all of, I'm holding my hand up like you can see my freaking hand, idiot. Ignore all of this and just look at this. So we're just editing here the cost per lead. Now, I'm assuming that this brand is a 2-part conversion. Either way, I've kept it all the same. Remember, lead to estimate is call in to an estimate booked. Estimate is the franchisee takes the estimate and they closes the job. If this cost per lead is $30 with a conversion rate of 68 and a success rate of 55 with an average job size of 100, well then to drive 25,000, they need to spend $20,000. Still not great numbers, but unfortunately numbers I do see. Now, if their cost per lead is $100, now they have to spend $66,000, and that does not a model make, which tells me that before we tell a franchisee we have to go spend, we have to understand, is our model correct? Are we underpricing? What are these conversion rates they're expected to hit based on if these are true numbers? Because if these are true numbers, these are relatively good conversion rates. I'd say low for the top, high for the bottom. Then we are not putting our expectations correctly around the numbers that need to drive revenue. Now, let's assume that we went with the lower ticket size. Now let's look at conversion rate. And for the purpose of this, I'm just pretending it is an all-in-one conversion rate, which is why I put 100% for the second line. We'll just consider this lead to final sale. The cost per lead is $30. I have a franchisee that converts 80% in total with $100. Well, now to make $25,000, they have to spend $9,300. Now, if I have a franchisee, and I kid you not, this happened to me a couple weeks ago, that converts at 22%, well, now to make 25, they have to spend 34. That immediately should tell marketing and ops, it doesn't matter how much money you spend if you're not going to close them. So the focus now needs to be on them and their closing ratio before I can tell them to go spend more money in different channels, because there is a huge hole in the bucket. Then if we look at ticket size, let's assume again, $30 cost per lead, the conversion rates are 68 and 55 respectively. Now I've got a franchisee that charges $175. I now know I have to spend $11,400 to make 25. If I have a franchisee that's scared to quote and they're giving away services at 75, well, now you have to spend 26 to make 25. 1 or 2 percentages and, the change of $2 or $3 here or there equates for thousands of dollars in marketing spend. And when we've got franchisees that we know the most difficult piece is to get them out and go do, the local marketing stuff, on top of assuming you're an ops person who you're like, I know everything else they have to do. Like, I can't tell them to go do everything. There's not enough time. Now you can see from your side before you go into these coaching calls of, if they don't do anything on their numbers, is this a business? Does this make sense? Or do I have to work with them to scale back somewhere of their time or their overhead so that, I can work with marketing and work with this franchisee to get the cost per lead down, get the conversion rate better, get them to stop, discounting their services, because all of this combines into them spending less and getting more. So on that, it's essential to communicate that achieving their growth goals requires an investment. Time or money? Ideally, it's both. Like I said before, pre-2020, we were probably 60-40 on local and digital, heavier on the local. Now we are about 90-10, heavier on the digital. I would love that to be 80-20 digital, 70-30 even better. But we are in an extreme flux, which Google is sitting pretty and saying, yeah, more volume, more, more money and more costs, more auctions. But for franchisees, that's not an answer. And I know as ops and business coaches, you just simply can't tell people to spend money they don't have, right? This is food on their table for their kids. Truthfully, I almost lost everything I had to a bad franchise investment. So I'm very much, I never want to tell a franchisee, just go do more, go spend more, or, hey, let's test something out, because I know those effects it has on their Christmas. I know it means the difference between a Disney trip or not a Disney trip. So that said, if they are to drive these costs down, that is where their local efforts come in. So this is, like I said, the devil's calculator, but assists both in the franchisees and on the ops side of, where are these expectations actually sitting? So just to recap, this is what I mean by more middle of the funnel for ops to go up a little bit. What are the conversion rates? Can you tell me the conversion rates on Google? What about Facebook? Oftentimes I see franchisees spending too much in a channel that's not meant to convert, and that needs to be flipped. Now, should that be on marketing? Yes. But as you start the conversations about conversion rates, which marketing teams often do not see, nor the average ticket size, that's where you can start those conversations. So leaving this meeting, I would love to tell you a couple things that I would love for you to send and ask marketing or start the conversation. One thing is, you got to give to get. So what can you give to marketing to help them understand this? One, the average ticket size. Two, the conversion rates, if you have them. What are the overhead thresholds? If you asked anybody in your marketing, I guarantee you that 3 or 4 out of 5 do not know what the average revenue threshold they have to hit to break even. What are the revenue goals, and what is the average lifetime value? That is numbers you can give to marketing to help them craft their strategy. Should they be asking for it? Yes, but we're coming off a world where we could turn a Facebook campaign on and it printed money, right? So this might be a good reminder. Here's something you can ask for on your end. What's our average cost per lead? What's our average marketing spend? Because like I said, we might have a 4% requirement. What is that 4%? Usually marketing doesn't know what people are doing monthly. If it's a flat fee, again, like that's split across a whole bunch. You don't know what they're spending. Usually we can kind of guess. So what is that average marketing spend? What channels are we spending in? How are we tracking the data? There are dashboards, and you should probably have access to them. And while that is marketing's job, just like you don't really want marketing going into the ops and the CRM and the field routes, as you're starting to learn more, it might be beneficial for you to poke around. If you've got a franchisee up your butt about marketing doesn't work, I hate this franchise, you lied to me, you go into the dashboard and you're like, well, they've been telling you to spend $3,000 and you spend $750. So let me know when you want to have the real conversation. And then also understanding, like, what is your biggest struggle with owners right now? Is it that they're not spending enough, which is usually what happens? Is it the job size? The ticket sizes are too large and they're not willing to do some sort of promo to help on the creative end? Is it conversion rate? These are questions that you can ask together. Most of the time franchise marketing people are going to come back and say, we are not spending enough to compete. So, we're barely getting by in terms of plateauing. I don't, or, stagnant growth. We would need X thousands to grow, to pour gas in the tank. And that's that top of the funnel. How does it circle back? So having these conversations with owners for sure. And then shameless plug, obviously this is part of your franchise group. This will all be uploaded there. I will give you guys a promo code for like 3 months free or whatever. I'm not trying to charge you to have this information, but we really want to grow this platform. granted, if you were to pay for it, it's like $20 a month. It's nothing. But we want to grow this so that we've got franchisors talking, resources all live here. You've got calendar of events. We also have a separate portal for franchisees as well to continuously also get referrals and really build our network in total. So if you like this presentation, it's going to live there. I will also send it out via email. And if you have any questions regarding this presentation, please feel free to reach out to me directly via email. A lot of you have my cell. Just text me until I answer. And again, I hope you found this valuable. I hope you share it with your teams. And if there's anything I missed, please, I love feedback. Again, I hope that this is going to assist in making everyone some more money. So with that, I can't believe I ended 4 minutes early. I'm going to go finish my beer. Have a great rest of your Friday, and I hope you do the same.
Thanks, Maddie.